Charge, it's your meeting,
I appreciate that.
your committee.
Yes. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to go ahead and get started tonight with the Policy Committee. I'd like to call to order the Policy Committee scheduled for this evening on September 10th, 2015 at 5:30. President is Director Gould and myself. Madam Clerk, is there anybody from the public that wishes to address this board?
There are no public speakers this evening.
Thank you very much. Moving on to the consent agenda. Are there any?
Make a motion, we approve.
I second, I guess, if I have to second.
Director Gould
Aye.
and Barnes.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay. There are no action items apparently tonight, but so we have a presentation item for Ms. Maddox. If you could, please.
Good evening, directors. I'm Melissa Maddox, the HR manager here at Metro Fire. I'm here tonight to present the new administrative policy 02.010.01, paid sick leave law. This policy is designed to provide salary continuation for part-time employees in accordance with the Healthy Workplace, Healthy Family Act of 2014, also known as AB 1522. And as you know, of course, administrative policies are for review and informational purposes only as previously directed by the policy committee. We did, although this policy does not apply to 522 members, we did give them an opportunity to review it also. So at this time, if you have any questions for me.
Mr. Chair, I have a quick question. Melissa, the question, Ms. Maddox, I'm sorry. The question I have is, these are for part-time, this benefit is really designed for our part-time and reserve staff. It appears to me in reading the policy. Is there some type of minimum base of hours that a reservist or part-time employee must work on an annualized or monthly basis in order for this policy to then kick in? I guess my concern is, I didn't read that, I may have missed it, but I didn't see where a part-time or reservist has to work to a minimum in order for this to apply. You see, my point is, I'm concerned about, I'm okay with the benefit, but I'm concerned with what's the base to get in to take advantage of the benefit, and I didn't see that as a matter of policy, is that it's written. So my concern is, I'm a part-time employee, I work for 1 hour, and then obviously I wouldn't start accruing a lot of sick leave, but I then get it, I'm in the show, so to speak, as far as taking advantage. And so I'm just wondering if there was a consideration amongst your staff and you to come up with some minimum. Is that a standard in this particular act, or what is the? Yeah,
there actually is a minimum. You have to work at least 30 days in a calendar year.
Okay, so it's 30 days, but it's not a per hour event. I could work 1 hour for 30 days, and I'm in the show, so that's a 30 versus I have to work a certain number of hours in order to then take the.
Yeah, it's 30 days, and according to the law, it's 30 days. So I think you would just base it on shifts.
Okay.
So if it's a 12-hour shift or an 8-hour shift, it would be considered a day.
Okay. So is there any need to clarify that? I mean, is it? So if I'm required to work 30 days and I'm a reservist, that's maybe a 12-hour day. Where if I'm a non-reservist, that could be an 8-hour day, and therefore the reservist, it takes longer for them to get in to kick into the benefit versus because it's a day of employment versus any hour-based thing. And that was the only concern as I wrote my notes to myself was I could see a reservist working a day is a 24-hour shift. 30 of those would be significant amount of invested time versus if I was not on a 24-hour or 12-hour shift, I could work a lot less hours and still get the same benefit.
We'll definitely review that and go back to the law and make sure that we're in accordance with that. And if we can add to, making it more clear, then we'll definitely do that.
Yeah, because I think that just by saying 30 days, okay, well, that doesn't give us any idea of I could show up for an hour. And so maybe there's some wiggle room for us. That's the minimum is you got to have 30 days, but maybe there's wiggle room for us because it is a significant, I mean, let's be honest, it's a significant benefit. It's a nice benefit that people get to enjoy because of the act. But at the same time, I would like to make sure that we kind of monitor that a little bit more so that we protect some of the taxpayer dollars that are ultimately being spent for this.
Yes, and we've been meeting regularly with payroll to try to, and we've attended some seminars to try to figure out how to track all this, and we're currently working through all that.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. And I'm assuming there's some best practices in other organizations like ours that have implemented this particular policy?
Yes, yes, definitely. There's lots on the Department of Labor's website, and you know, every agency in California has to follow the law. So everyone was in the beginning kind of struggling with it at first. So
Sure.
you know, we're kind of leaning on each other to figure
And of course,
it out.
we have no projected cost because we don't know how many folks are going to apply this towards. That was my next kind of question mark, but I kind of get the idea that we really don't know at this point. We'll track that over an annualized basis to see what eventually it ends up costing us. Tell me again, remind me about the accrual. Is it similar to all of our other employees when it comes to accrual of sick leave, cash value?
You would only accrue 24 hours in a year, and that's a max. It doesn't roll over.
Okay.
It's kind of use it or lose it.
Okay.
As far as the cash out, I don't know if we've gotten that far yet. I
Okay.
will definitely check with payroll to see how that's going to work. If I'm, you know, just like with regular employees, if you resign or without retiring, then your sick leave stays in, you know, with Metro.
Sure.
So.
And I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. You know, I guess one of my concerns about use it or lose it, you know, it's a benefit that we give our employees, and I'm more inclined to see us move towards an accrual kind of thing where you can bank it, or, because when you get into this use it or lose it, you kind of put people into a position of, okay, I'm gonna get sick the week before I lose it. And I don't know if that's really the intent, versus this is a benefit that we make available to you, and like some of our other employees who can bank and accrue, maybe that's something that this agency ought to look at. Why would we have the use it or lose it for one kind of group of individuals that work with us, and another one where they can accrue it over time and cash it out and do a whole bunch of other things? So,
Yeah, you know,
those are
one thing that
question marks I had.
yeah, one thing I would add on that is I know that even for long-term, full-time employees that have been here for 25 years, in
Right.
one case that I can think of readily, if you leave before service retirement, your sick leave banks don't necessarily go with you. And, you know, some of those, I mean, your vacation leaves and those are required, but I can tell you there is a significant impact to the organization for the accrual buyouts. And so we got to be careful that we're not doing something above and beyond what law would dictate to us. And I do know the 30 days in this, I think the interpretation of the law in this, and for me, is whatever your shift would be, because it's they're part-time employees and or reserve. So like as a reserve status, if you had a reserve assignment for a day, some of those might be 1 hour, some of them might be 3 hours, some of them might be a 12, but
Right.
once a month type of thing.
Right.
So I think that's where they came up. So it's such a random group of participation that I think they came up with a day versus an hourly. Because otherwise it would be too disparate based on what your particular schedule was, or your job, or your participation as a part-time employee. So I think the law was intentionally drawn that way. We could certainly put some clarifying language in the policy to enhance what the law would provide. But I think, out of my own thoughts here, we have several part-time employees that might be working part-time, coincidentally. And then some reserves and things that have worked for many, many years for us up in the north part of the district that this will apply to. And so they're, at 30-day might be, they respond to a fire station for a false alarm and literally drive back home without even spending an hour. And some days it might be 16 hours on the same grass fire. So I think to quantify it by time is what the intent of the law was. Or not time, but by events. Shifts.
Uh-oh. Sounds like we need clarification.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Agenda items for next meeting. Will we have policies ready to review for the next meeting? Do you anticipate?
We have two policies certainly sitting with Buck Tutu at this time. So if we get it back in time, we'll bring it to you.
Perfect, thank you.
Any idea, Chief, what those might be?
I'm s-
Just a hint?
Off the
Come
top
on,
of my
tease us.
head,
It might give
can't
me a
remember.
comment. Okay. All
Sorry.
right.
I have like 6 of them in the queue that
Oh,
they're
6?
working on.
Okay.
It all depends on which ones labor gets back and we talk and
Got
agree
it.
that everybody.
Exactly. Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Maddox.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. If there's nothing else this evening, board,
I got nothing.
staff, okay. The next meeting date will be October 8th, 2015 in these chambers, and if there's nothing else, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.